Muhammad can't go to the mountain, then we bring the mountain to Muhammad. And here we are in musical Mecca in Leeds. This is Music HQ. How long have you guys been here for?
About 2 years, is it, in here? Yeah. About 2 years down here, yeah.
Decorate yourself with all the jazz pictures and everything else?
No, it's a mate of ours who owns it, and we like rent a room basically all the time.
Yeah. So it's safe to say the majority of the debut album was written in this room, pretty much?
Yeah.
All of it? Yeah. Talk about you know, what you've been doing for the last 12 months, because you've been travelling pretty much the entire world ever since you released that album. You're one of the sort of most far-reaching, internationally zone-coasting bands to come out of this country in a while. What was the first stop for you once you actually decided to move further afield from the UK?
Did a bit in Europe, and then I think it was straight to Japan or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, because things have really happened for you in Japan. Hey, let's talk about your relationship with the people out there, because from what we hear from other bands who've seen you guys out there, it's just kicking off.
Yeah, I mean, they just connect with us. I don't know why. I mean, we've done Fuji twice now, and both times it's been like best gigs ever, you know? And it's just the reaction you get out of them as well. It's incredible.
When you have some time on the tour bus or whatever, and you got some downtime, and you think like, oh, why this? Do you sort of think, why this record all of a sudden? You know, why is it that we're able to travel all over the world with this record? Do you ever kind of think, you know, God, what about the next record? Do you ever analyse music on that level, or do you just not try and think about it?
I think about that pretty much every day. Yeah. You know, like I was just talking to a friend the other day, saying how like excited but yet scared I am about this next record, and I would just feel like over the last 2 years I've just proper blagged it, and like I don't feel like I deserve any of it, you know what I mean?
Must change though the more that you play, and the bigger the crowds, the more successful you become, because I guess in a way it's validation. You want your music to be heard by more people, and if you see 4,000 people going nuts as opposed to 400, then does that work for you? Does that fill you full of confidence, or does it not even register?
I think it does fill us full of confidence. It would anyone, you know, you stood in front of 4,000 people all loving what you're doing. It's amazing.
How are you when it comes to going on the road as a band? I mean, I know that you're a really tight unit, you're all best mates, and that's the most important thing, but, you know, obviously there are added stresses, a lot of travel, a lot of jet lag, a lot of time, not a lot of time spent in one particular place. I mean, have there been moments when you guys have been like, can we stop now, you know, can we get off the road?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did a stint of, like, I think it was Australia, America, Japan, and Europe. And then Europe, yeah.
Some serious air miles.
Yeah, and that really beat us, you know, like, as a band as well, you know, personally as well, you know, because we all like to, you know, be in each other's pockets, and you don't really want to tell someone to off, you know. Yeah.
What was the most, apart from, like you say, living in each other's pockets and being on a tour bus, being in a confined space for a long period of time, I mean, what is the hardest thing about touring? Before we get to the best thing, what's the hardest thing?
America.
Because it just requires so much of your time, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's all the same, you know, it's like, and just the food and everything, it's all right after a while, but if you're there for ages, it just proper grinds you down.
Let's talk a bit about the whole American experience. Let's drag you through that horror, because, I mean, a lot of bands, you know, they go over to the States and they come from playing pretty good venues here, and they bottle it. And I don't think a lot of people really recognise that you guys did put the miles in out there, didn't you? I mean, you would have spent quite a few months out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, longest stint I think we did over there were like 2.5 months, something like that, and that was like...
Big solid tour.
That's like Rob says, you know, that was a time when it started to get to us a bit, and we were just like, can we go home now?
Yeah.
But all the time the gigs were really good, and people were reacting in good ways, but it was just hard work, and I can see why a lot of bands, you know, don't bother with it or whatever. Yeah.
When you come from a different country, you know, you've got your established comforts. You know, you have your home, you have whatever flat you bought on the last UK tour, and you've sold records. You don't want to have to go out and do that all over again. In some ways, you're better off doing it like Bush did when they just went to the States, and they did it before they got their creature comforts, if that's what you want to do. You know, you go out and you crack it. What about things like radio and TV and stuff? I mean, because radio is really important out in the States. I mean, have the K-Rock network, have they really supported you?
We've got quite a bit of support. It's, like you say, radio's so important because there's that many radio stations. It's not like in England, you've got Radio 1 or whatever that goes across the country, but in America there's thousands of different ones, and to try and appeal to them all and like get to them all is pretty hard. But we did a bit of radio stuff, didn't we, really?
In terms of doing press, do you come up with a lot of resistance? Because in America they expect all their artists to like do the press. That's what you do, and I mean it's not really what you do. Is it?
No, I mean, yeah, the record company out there do work a bit different over here. You know, they are much more sort of pushy in that sense, in a press sense, and they just do expect you to do it, and they're sort of a bit taken aback when we're not really up for doing it. Because, like I say, we haven't really done a lot of TV in this country, and we've done quite a lot of press, I think, but not as much TV.
You can't really sell yourself as a pop band when you're not, you know what I mean? And it's pointless us doing TV and all these mad radio interviews and then releasing a song that's 6 minutes long.
Yeah, but you know, in a roundabout way, ironically, you're actually feeding the interest, because the less TV and stuff that you do, the more the mystery starts to build around your band, you know, and you end up, next time you guys release an album, it's going to be media frenzy. You're like decamped and outside your rehearsal studio in Leeds, and they'll know where it is because I'll tell them. One pretty high-profile tour that you guys had when you were out in the States was with the Vines, and I spoke to Craig about you guys, and he loves your music, and he loves you as people, and he gets a hard time, but I really love him as a dude. I think he's a top man.
Yeah, we do too. Yeah, we've got a lot of time for him, and for all of them, you know, they're really, really good people. They're a great band as well, you know.
Yeah,
tunes.
You built some pretty big camaraderie with a lot of bands that you seem to tour with, you know. You seem to be a musicians kind of band.
We're all doing the same thing at the end of the day, do you know what I mean? I know it sounds kind of cliche and all that, but it's hard enough as it is. There's no point having any kind of rival. And most bands that we tour with are really cool anyway.
Lollapalooza, you know, that's a chance to hang out with all, I mean, that's pretty much, you know, one big kind of friend, it's one big circus, isn't it? Every single day you go there, a big barbecue, chance to socialise. Who's some of your favourite bands that you got to see when you were out there doing that? Because that was a pretty strong lineup, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as good as as strong as something like the Big Day Out in terms of the party atmosphere. There was even better as well. I think
Big Day Off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the Lollapalooza, it was not what we expected at all. You know, we got there and expected it to be like Big Day Out, but be a laugh and whatever. But it wasn't really. It was a bit. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, just American type travelling festival. Our stage was pretty much back of a truck that just came up and yeah. We saw when we were going down motorway one time, it drove past us. The first time you can say stages drove past you.
Perry, it seems this time around, and no disrespect to the man, you know, because obviously this is all going out at a time when they're going to be headlining our 5th birthday, and we appreciate that. But, you know, it just seems that with the Lollapalooza Festival this time around, he learned from last time where the ideal of what he wanted to do didn't equate economically with what he wanted to do, and he had to toe the line a bit more this time.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've got no experience of it before this, and we've never even heard of it before this. Well, I hadn't either, so, I mean, it was all new to us, but it wasn't, you know, it was good watching Janes and whatever and hanging out with them, but other than that, it was pretty pretty hard again, you know, to endure sort of thing.
Especially at the end of this run. I mean, you guys, you wanted to be here, didn't you? You know, ultimately.
Yeah, we've been wanting to be here for as long as we can remember. You know.
We're going to get to being back here in just a minute, but first, obviously, Jane's Addiction are headlining and coming on directly after you guys on our 5th birthday night. And we know that Perry loves your music because I've read it in the press and I've spoken to him about it on the phone as well. So, did you guys have a chance to kind of do a little bonding with him and talk about music and hang out with Jane?
Yeah, like just before they were going on stage, Perry wasn't quite ready, and I went into the jam tent where the rest of the band were playing. Sang Dazed and Confused by Zeppelin with him.
Seriously?
Yeah, man.
That's cool. That's cool. That is ace. That's one of the coolest things I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
Did Perry check it out? Was he like, get out of my band, man?
That's how I like turning around every 2 weeks just to check see if he wasn't coming in, like stood behind me in his costume, you know what I mean?
So you guys are back here now, and you're in Leeds, and this is the rehearsal space where you're planning on writing a new record. Did it take a little while for you guys to readjust once you got back home after sort of being, travelling non-stop? It's a cliche, but is it true?
Yeah, definitely still adjusting. So we've only been in like a week, so we've got like quite a few ideas, but it's going to be a while before we get finished. Get back into it, like you said.
Yeah. Kind of nice coming back and seeing each other and being able to have something to talk about, you know what I mean? Share different experiences, because normally you see everything.
Having a pint and actually sort of reminiscing for a minute, you know what I mean? Yeah. And a lot of bands always say, when I've interviewed them, they said, do you reflect on what you've achieved in the last 12 months? I was like, no, we just want to move forward. But I think it must be one of the coolest things in the world to go down the local pub and go, do you remember that gig that we played like a year ago in that, whatever? So do you remember that gig? So you got some ideas for this next record. Have you even considered when you might sort of think about putting it out? Because the fans will want to know. You even talked about possible studio tapes like early next year or whatever.
We'd love to be able to tell people when, but we don't know ourselves,